Hi there. Welcome to Melted Stone, this spot for stories that grab you and won't let you go. If you love drama, surprises, and moments that make you say, no way, you're in the right place. Subscribe and dive into tales full of twists, bold moves, and endings you'll remember. This is Melted Stone. Hit the bell and let's get the story rolling.
This isn't right.
The headlights cut through the darkness like searchlights hunting prey. Ethan Cole gripped the steering wheel tighter, knowing something was wrong the moment he saw the second set of lights blocking the road ahead. Two black SUVs sat parked nose to nose across the narrow asphalt, their engines running, exhaust clouds drifting in the October chill. He'd made this drive from downtown Detroit to his auto shop thousands of times. Never once had he seen vehicles positioned like roadblocks on Riverside Drive at 11:30 at night. Ethan pulled his delivery van to a stop 50 yards back, engine idling. The smart move was to reverse, find another route home. But the smart move wouldn't explain why someone wanted to trap him on this particular stretch of back road after his late parts delivery. His phone showed no signal. Of course. The driver's door of the left SUV opened. A man in dark clothing stepped out, moving with purpose toward Ethan's van. Then the passenger door of the right vehicle opened. Another figure emerged. Ethan shifted into reverse, but headlights blazed in his rearview mirror. A third SUV had appeared behind him, completing the box. Well, hell. The first man reached Ethan's window and tapped on the glass with something metallic. Ethan could make out a baseball bat in the dim light. Step out of the vehicle, Mr. Cole. The voice was muffled by a ski mask, but the tone carried authority. Cop authority. Ethan rolled down his window an inch. Problem, officer. I said step out. Let me see some identification first. The bat cracked against his side mirror, shattering the glass. Now, three more figures had emerged from the SUVs, all masked, all carrying bats or tire irons. This wasn't a traffic stop. Ethan killed the engine and opened his door slowly, hands visible. Whatever this is about, we can talk it through. Nothing to talk about. The first man grabbed Ethan's jacket and yanked him away from the van. You've been causing problems for the wrong people. I fix cars. Don't cause problems for anybody. Your existence is a problem. The first blow caught him across the ribs, the second across his back as he doubled over. Ethan had been in fights before, bar scuffles mostly, but this was different. Professional, methodical. He tried to protect his head as boots and bats found their marks. Through the pain, he caught glimpses of details. One attacker wore expensive sneakers. Another had a distinctive scar on his knuckles. And the man giving orders wore a gold watch that caught the SUV headlights. Ethan knew that watch. Custom-made Rolex, police shield engraved on the face. He'd seen it dozens of times over the years at barbecues and neighborhood parties. Lieutenant Rick Santoro's watch. Santoro sends his regards, the lead attacker said, delivering a final kick to Ethan's kidney. The world spun. Gravel bit into his cheek. Engine sounds faded as the SUVs pulled away, leaving him alone on the empty road with the taste of blood and betrayal. Ethan Cole had never hurt Rick Santoro, had barely spoken to the man beyond pleasantries at community events. Rick was married to his wife Marissa's college roommate. They moved in the same social circles, attended the same fundraisers. But Rick's watch had just overseen Ethan's beating, which meant Marissa knew. Consciousness faded as rain began to fall. Mr. Cole, can you hear me? Ethan opened his eyes to fluorescent lights and the antiseptic smell of Henry Ford Hospital. A woman in a dark suit sat beside his bed, badge clipped to her jacket, FBI. Agent Dana Morell, she said, noticing his focus on the badge. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by 3 SUVs. Ethan's voice came out as a croak. What time is it? Tuesday morning. You've been unconscious for 6 hours. Motorist found you around midnight, called 911. Lucky me. Agent Morell leaned forward. Mr. Cole, we have reason to believe your attack is connected to an ongoing federal investigation. I need to ask you some questions. Federal investigation into what? Police corruption. Specifically, Lieutenant Rick Santoro and his business relationships with local organized crime figures. Ethan stared at the ceiling tiles. Never heard of him. Your wife's Facebook page shows photos of you at several social events with Lieutenant Santoro and his wife. Barbecues, charity dinners, Halloween parties. My wife knows a lot of people. I fix their cars. Mr. Cole, someone wanted you hurt. Badly. We can protect you if you cooperate with our investigation. Protect me from what? I told you I don't know anything about police corruption. Agent Morrell stood, leaving a business card on the nightstand. When you're ready to talk, call me before they come back to finish the job. After she left, Ethan lay still, processing the implications. Rick Santoro was corrupt. The FBI was investigating him, and somehow, Ethan had become a target. But why? His phone buzzed with a text from Marissa. Heard about your accident at Mom's for a few days. Feel better? Accident, not attack, not someone tried to kill you. Accident. Ethan discharged himself Wednesday afternoon against medical advice. 3 cracked ribs, a concussion, and enough bruises to look like a losing prizefighter, but nothing that would keep him from finding answers. His first stop was Cole Automotive, the shop he'd built from nothing over 15 years. The front window was spiderwebbed with cracks. Inside, equipment lay scattered across the floor like a tornado had passed through. His toolbox, custom snap-on tools worth 15 grand, was gone. So were the diagnostic computers and the hydraulic lift controls. Javier Reyes, his 29-year-old apprentice, sat on an overturned crate in the middle of the chaos, shaking his head. They hit us around 3 a.m., Javier said. Neighbors heard glass breaking, but by the time cops showed up, they were gone. Cops take a report. Yeah, but they didn't seem too interested. Said it looked like routine vandalism. Ethan picked up a wrench from the floor, one of the few tools the vandals had left behind. Routine vandalism doesn't target specific equipment. They knew what to take. Boss, there's something else. Javier glanced around nervously. I was at Murphy's Tavern Monday night, Saw Mrs. Cole there with some guy. They were close. Close how? Kissing close, hand-holding close. She left with him around 10:30. Ethan felt something cold settle in his stomach. Described the guy. Older, maybe 45. Nice clothes, expensive watch, badge on his belt. Rick Santoro. She say anything to you? Didn't see me. I left after they did. Followed them to that new nightclub downtown. Velvet something. The Velvet Room? That's it. Bouncer treated the guy like royalty, escorted them straight to a VIP section upstairs. Ethan set down the wrench carefully. Marissa and Rick, together at a nightclub known for its high-roller clientele and rumored mob connections, the night before Ethan's beating. Javier, I need you to do something for me. Check the delivery van, see if the dash cam is still working. Already did. Camera's fine, but the memory card's gone. They missed something. Ethan walked to his office, stepping over broken glass. His desk had been ransacked, papers scattered, but the vandals hadn't found everything. Behind a false panel in the filing cabinet, he kept backup equipment for insurance purposes, including a secondary dashcam system he'd installed after a customer disputed a delivery time. The backup camera had been recording when the SUVs blocked his path. Ethan plugged the memory card into his laptop. The footage was grainy, shot through the windshield in low light, but clear enough to make out details. The attack itself was too dark to see faces, but the final frame before the camera was knocked offline showed something interesting. The rear SUV had backed up to make room for the others to leave. For just a moment, its license plate was visible under a streetlight. Government plate. Fleet designation starting with the Detroit Police Department prefix. Ethan smiled for the first time since Monday night. Thursday evening, Ethan sat in his car outside the Velvet Room, watching the valet lot fill with luxury sedans and sports cars, the kind of venue where politicians rubbed shoulders with businessmen whose businesses didn't quite match their wealth. He'd cleaned up as much as possible, button-down shirt to hide the worst bruises, baseball cap pulled low to shadow his black eyes. Just another customer looking for expensive drinks and overpriced steaks. The bouncer was a mountain of muscle squeezed into an ill-fitting tuxedo. He looked Ethan up and down with the practiced eye of someone used to screening clientele. First time? Friend recommended the place, said the steaks were worth the drive. Name? Eddie Cooper. Close enough to his real name to answer to, different enough to avoid immediate recognition. Inside, the Velvet Room was all red leather and dim lighting, with a jazz quartet playing in one corner and well-dressed people conducting quiet conversations over top-shelf liquor. Ethan took a seat at the bar where he could see the VIP section on the second floor. It didn't take long to spot them. Rick Santoro sat in a corner booth, his arm around Marissa, both laughing at something on his phone. She wore a black dress Ethan had never seen before, the kind that cost more than most people's car payments. Rick was in a tailored suit, his gold watch catching the light every time he lifted his whiskey glass. They looked comfortable together. Established, like they'd been doing this for months. A third person joined their table, a man Ethan recognized from newspaper photos, Victor Barron, who owned half the parking lots and tow yards in downtown Detroit, also rumored to run protection rackets for local businesses, though nothing had ever been proven in court. Vic was flashy in the way only successful criminals could be. Gold chains, diamond-studded watch, shoes that probably cost more than Ethan made in a week. He greeted Rick with a handshake that lasted too long, the kind that involved more than pleasantries. Money-changing hands. Ethan ordered another beer and watched the three of them conduct business disguised as socializing. Rick would nod, Vic would laugh. Marissa would lean in to whisper something that made both men smile. After an hour, Ethan left cash on the bar and headed for the exit, but not before stopping at the host station, where he left a note on velvet room letterhead. 3 SUVs, 2 bats, 1 watch. See you soon. He signed it with his real name and asked the hostess to deliver it to Lieutenant Santoro's table. Friday morning brought Agent Morell to Ethan's hospital room, except he'd already checked out. She found him at his shop instead, where he was sweeping broken glass into a garbage bag. Feeling better, Mr. Cole? Getting there. What can I do for you, Agent? Someone delivered an interesting package to our field office yesterday. Photographs of Lieutenant Santoro meeting with known felons. Very clear shots, taken with a telephoto lens. Ethan kept sweeping. Sounds like someone's doing your job for you. The photographs came with a note. Said more evidence would follow if we opened a formal investigation into Santoro's activities. Anonymous tip? The handwriting matches your signature on your hospital discharge papers. Ethan looked up. Handwriting analysis? That's pretty thorough police work, Agent Morell. The FBI takes corruption cases seriously, especially when local law enforcement is involved in organized crime. Can't help you there. I fix cars. Agent Morell studied him for a long moment. Mr. Cole, I'm going to give you some advice. Whatever you're planning, it won't work. These people don't follow rules. They don't have limits. If you keep pushing, they'll kill you. Maybe. Or maybe they'll make a mistake and you'll catch them. Is that what this is about? You want us to catch them? Ethan set down the broom. Agent Morell, let me ask you something. If someone tried to kill you and the local police were part of the conspiracy, what would you do? I'd trust the federal authorities to handle the investigation. And if the federal authorities needed evidence to build a case but couldn't get it through normal channels, Agent Morell considered this. I'd tell that person to be very careful about crossing lines they can't uncross. Good advice. After she left, Ethan pulled out his phone and called Javier. I need you to do something for me. Something that might get you in trouble if we're caught. What kind of trouble? The kind where you might need a good lawyer. What do you need, boss? The insurance scam was Javier's idea, actually. Smart kid, college-educated, but preferred working with his hands to sitting behind a desk. He'd noticed that Vic Barron's towing company had contracts with 3 major insurance providers, all of whom had been pushing to reduce fraudulent claims in the Detroit metro area. Insurance companies hate paying claims, Javier explained, as they sat in Ethan's kitchen, planning their next move. But they hate fraudulent claims even more, especially when the fraud involves organized crime. How do you know about insurance fraud? Criminal justice major before I switched to automotive technology. Fraud investigation was my favorite class. Ethan spread out a map of downtown Detroit, marking locations with red pins. Vic owns or controls these 7 towing operations. They handle everything from police impounds to private property tows. Cash business, easy to skim. Right. And insurance companies pay them directly for accident recovery services. No oversight, no audits. So if someone were to interfere with that relationship, cash flow problems, big ones. They spent the weekend conducting surveillance, documenting the daily operations at each tow yard. Javier had a talent for photography, and his telephoto lens captured detailed images of license plates, employee schedules, and security procedures. By Monday, they had a plan. The first target was Riverside Towing, Vic's largest operation. 12 trucks, round-the-clock service, prime contracts with the city and county. Also the least secure facility, with minimal lighting and cameras that hadn't been updated in years. Tuesday night, Ethan and Javier cut the chain-link fence behind the maintenance garage. No alarms, no guards, just a lone security light that had been broken for weeks according to their surveillance. They didn't steal anything. Instead, they sabotaged. Sugar in gas tanks, sand in oil reservoirs, Brake lines loosened just enough to fail under heavy load. Nothing that would hurt anyone, but everything that would cost serious money to repair. By Wednesday morning, 8 of Riverside's 12 trucks were out of service. The company had to subcontract emergency towing to competitors, eating into their profit margins. Worse, they had to cancel scheduled service calls, disappointing insurance company clients who'd been promised prompt response times. Thursday brought the anonymous tip to Michigan State Police. Riverside Towing is filing fraudulent insurance claims. Check their maintenance records against actual service calls. Friday brought the audit notice from Great Lakes Insurance Group. The investigation would take weeks, but the damage was immediate. Insurance companies suspended new contracts pending the audit results. Existing contracts were put under enhanced scrutiny. Cash flow, as Javier had predicted, became a serious problem. Vic Barron was not pleased. "You've got brass balls, I'll give you that." Rick Santoro's voice came from behind Ethan as he worked under the hood of a customer's BMW Saturday morning. The shop was closed, but Ethan had keys and work to catch up on. He didn't turn around. "Lieutenant Santoro, surprised to see you here." "Are you?" "Because I'm not surprised at all." Rick walked around the car so they could face each other. "You left me a note the other night. Very cryptic, very threatening." "Did I?" "Must have been someone else." 3 SUVs, 2 bats, 1 watch. Ring any bells?" Ethan wiped his hands on a shop rag, taking his time. "Maybe. Was there something specific you needed to discuss?" "Yeah, I need you to back off." "Back off from what?" Rick's hand moved to his service weapon, not drawing it but making sure Ethan noticed. "You know exactly what. The photographs, the insurance tips, the federal heat you're bringing down on people who don't appreciate federal heat. Sounds like a them problem. It's about to become a you problem." Rick stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I know about the dashcam footage. I know you've been following us. And I know you're working with the FBI. Do you? Here's what's going to happen. You're going to disappear, leave town, leave the state, I don't care. But you're going to stop being a problem for people I care about." "Including my wife?" Rick smiled. "Especially your wife. Marissa deserves better than a grease monkey who can't afford to keep her happy. She deserves someone who can provide for her, protect her." "Like you?" "Like me." Ethan nodded slowly. "And if I don't disappear? Then we'll have another conversation, this time without words." After Rick left, Ethan called Agent Morell. "I need to meet, tonight, somewhere private. Mr. Cole, if you have information, I have everything you need to put Rick Santoro and Victor Barron away for 20 years. But I have conditions." The meeting took place in the parking lot of a closed restaurant on 8 Mile Road, far from downtown and federal buildings where they might be seen together. Agent Morell arrived alone, as requested, in an unmarked sedan. "You look terrible," she said, noting his bruised face in the streetlight. "Rick Santoro paid me a visit this morning, made his position very clear." "Did he threaten you?" "In so many words. He also confirmed what I've suspected. He's sleeping with my wife, he's taking payoffs from Victor Barron, and he was behind the attack that put me in the hospital." Agent Morell pulled out a digital recorder. "I need you to repeat that for the record." "Not yet. I told you I had conditions." "I'm listening." "You don't arrest them until I'm finished." "Finished with what?" "Making sure they can never hurt anyone else. Santoro has been taking money from organized crime for years, using his badge to protect people like Barron. How many businesses have been shaken down? How many people have been threatened or hurt because a corrupt cop was providing protection? That's exactly why we need to arrest them now before— Before what? Before they lawyer up and walk away with plea bargains? Before Barron disappears to Mexico and Santoro retires with full pension?" Agent Morell studied his face in the dim light. "What are you proposing?" "I'm going to destroy them, financially, professionally, personally. I'm going to make them so toxic that even other criminals won't associate with them. Then, when they're desperate and cornered, they'll make mistakes. The kind of mistakes that lead to federal RICO charges." "Mr. Cole, you're talking about vigilante justice." "I'm talking about justice, period. The system failed to protect me. The system failed to catch them before they tried to kill me. So I'm going to hand-deliver them to you with enough evidence to guarantee convictions." "And what do you need from me?" Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. "Proof that I'm not just making this up. Photographs, financial records, surveillance footage. Enough to open a formal investigation." Agent Morell opened the envelope and flipped through the contents by streetlight. Bank deposit slips showing cash payments to Rick's personal account. photos of him meeting with known criminals, audio recordings of conversations between Vic and his crew discussing protection payments. How did you get this? The how doesn't matter. The important thing is it's all admissible in court, properly documented, legally obtained, independently verifiable. Mr. Cole, this is enough to arrest both of them tonight. But not enough to convict them. Santoro will claim the cash deposits were from side jobs. Barron will say the meetings were about legitimate business. The recordings could be taken out of context by a good defense attorney. So, what do you want me to do? Wait, let me push them until they do something stupid. Something that leaves no room for reasonable doubt. Agent Morrell closed the envelope. How long? 3 weeks. Maybe 4? And if I say no? Then you'll never see evidence this good again. And Rick Santoro will keep taking money from criminals until he retires to Florida with a government pension. After a long pause, Agent Morrell nodded. 3 weeks. But if anyone gets hurt, if you get hurt, the deal is off. Understood. As they shook hands, Ethan felt something he hadn't experienced since the night of the attack. Hope. The money trap was surprisingly simple to execute. Vic Barron's crew ran weekly cash collections from their clients, local businesses paying for protection services. The route was predictable, the timing consistent, and the security minimal. More importantly, they used the same courier every Wednesday, a low-level associate named Tommy Kessler, who drove a beat-up Honda Civic and carried no weapons beyond a switchblade he probably didn't know how to use properly. Javier had been following Tommy for 2 weeks, documenting his schedule and routes. Wednesday pickup from 6 businesses between noon and 3 p.m., then a direct drive to Vic's nightclub where the cash was counted and logged. Approximately $12,000 per week in small bills. The plan required precise timing and a disposable phone. Wednesday at 2:45 p.m., as Tommy finished his last pickup and headed toward downtown, Ethan called Detroit police from a prepaid cell. I need to report a robbery in progress. White Honda Civic, license plate number. He rattled off Tommy's information. Driver just robbed a convenience store on Corktown, heading south on Michigan Avenue. He's armed and dangerous. He hung up and called a second number. Vincent, it's Eddie Cooper. We met at Murphy's Tavern last week. Vincent Torino ran a rival protection operation on the east side, constantly at odds with Vic's crew over territory. I've got information about a money transfer you might find interesting. 20 minutes later, Vincent's people intercepted Tommy 3 blocks from the Velvet Room. They took the Honda, the cash, and left Tommy tied up in an alley with a note. Tell Barron the East Side sends their regards. By the time Tommy was found and reported to Vic, the money was gone and the Honda had been stripped and abandoned. But Ethan wasn't finished. While Vincent's crew was hitting Tommy, FBI surveillance teams, tipped off by an anonymous call about suspicious money transfers involving police corruption, were positioned outside the Velvet Room with telephoto lenses and recording equipment. They captured detailed photographs of Vic screaming at his associates, Rick Santoro arriving to discuss security concerns, and both men making heated phone calls that would later be subpoenaed under federal warrants. The missing $12,000 was the least of their problems. The federal attention was going to cost them millions. You're playing with fire. Marissa stood in the doorway of Ethan's shop Thursday evening, looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Designer coat, professional hair and makeup, jewelry that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Marissa. Ethan didn't look up from the engine he was rebuilding. Thought you were staying at your mother's. I was, until Rick called and told me about your little meeting the other night. Which meeting was that? Don't play dumb. You left him a threatening note at the Velvet Room. You've been following us, taking pictures, causing trouble for his friends. His friends? Marissa stepped into the shop, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. Victor Barron is a legitimate businessman. He runs towing services, owns restaurants, employs dozens of people. He doesn't deserve to be harassed by insurance investigators because of your jealousy. Jealousy? That's what this is about, isn't it? You found out about Rick and me, and now you're trying to destroy him out of spite. Ethan finally looked up. How long? How long what? How long have you been sleeping with Rick Santoro? Marissa's composure cracked slightly. That's none of your business. Actually, since you're still my wife, it's exactly my business. How long, Marissa? 8 months, maybe 9. Since before Christmas? Since New Year's Eve, if you must know. We met at the police charity gala, the one you refused to attend because you don't like crowds. Ethan remembered. Marissa had been angry about his decision to skip the event, accused him of never wanting to socialize with her friends. She'd gone alone and come home late, claiming she'd had too much champagne and needed to sleep it off. You've been lying to me for 8 months. I've been trying to spare your feelings for 8 months. Rick and I, we have things in common. Ambitions, goals. He understands what I want out of life. Which is what? More than this. Marissa gestured around the shop with obvious distaste. More than fixing cars and scraping by month to month. More than watching other people live the lives we should be living. We live just fine. We live like we're 25 years old and just starting out. I'm 36, Ethan. I want nice things. I want to travel, eat at good restaurants, wear clothes that don't come from department stores. I want a husband who can provide those things. Like Rick? Like Rick. Ethan wiped his hands on a shop rag, processing the admission. Does Rick know you're here? He knows I'm handling this conversation. Handling it how? Marissa reached into her purse and pulled out a folded document. Divorce papers. I've already signed them. You just need to sign where it's marked, and we can both move on with our lives. What about the shop? The house? Rick's lawyer says you can keep the business. I want half the value of the house, plus alimony for 3 years while I get established in my new career. New career? I'm going to be working for Victor's hospitality group. Event planning, marketing, that sort of thing. It's a good opportunity. Ethan took the papers and flipped through them. Standard divorce filing, but the financial terms were generous. Too generous for someone in Marissa's position. Did you know? Know what? About the plan to have me killed. Marissa's face went pale. What are you talking about? Monday night, 3 SUVs, masked men with baseball bats. They said Santoro sends his regards before they beat me unconscious and left me for dead. That's impossible. Rick would never. Rick's watch, Marissa. Custom Rolex with the police shield. One of the attackers was wearing it. You're making this up. Ethan pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph. The dashcam image, enhanced and enlarged, clearly showing Rick's distinctive watch on the wrist of one of the masked men. Still think I'm making it up? Marissa stared at the image, her hand trembling slightly. There has to be an explanation. There is. Your boyfriend is a corrupt cop who takes money from criminals. When those criminals decided I was a problem, Rick helped them solve it. The only reason I'm not dead is because they thought they'd hit me hard enough. I don't believe you. Call him. Ask him where he was Monday night between 11 and midnight. I don't have to. Call him, Marissa. Right now. Ask him about the watch. After a long pause, she pulled out her phone and dialed. Rick answered on the second ring. Hey, baby, how did it go with... Rick, I need to ask you something. Marissa's voice was steady, but Ethan could see doubt creeping into her expression. Monday night, where were you between 11 and midnight? Monday, I was on duty. Late shift, why? Ethan says you were involved in his attack. He has a photo of your watch. Put him on the phone. Marissa handed Ethan the phone. Rick's voice was cold and controlled. You son of a witch, I told you to back off. Hard to back off when you're trying to have me killed. That wasn't supposed to happen. Vic's guys got carried away. Ethan felt something click into place. Rick had just admitted to conspiracy in a recorded phone call, with Marissa as a witness. So you did know about it? I knew Vic wanted to send you a message. I didn't know they were going to beat you half to death. What kind of message? The kind that would make you reconsider sticking your nose in other people's business. Marissa was staring at Ethan with growing horror as she listened to her lover casually discuss attempted murder. And if the message didn't work, then we'd have a more serious conversation. Like the one you tried to have with me at my shop? Exactly like that. But Ethan, you keep pushing, and eventually someone's going to push back harder than you can handle. Is that a threat? It's a promise. The line went dead. Marissa looked like she was going to be sick. He just admitted, yeah, he did. In front of me. Yeah. Marissa sank into a chair, the divorce papers falling from her hands. Oh God, what have I gotten myself into? The recording of Rick's phone confession would have been inadmissible in court, obtained without a warrant, recorded without his knowledge or consent. But it was perfect for Ethan's purposes. He uploaded the audio file to a secure server and sent the link to 5 local news stations, 3 newspaper reporters, and a blogger who specialized in police misconduct stories. The story broke Friday morning. Detroit Police Lieutenant admits role in assault plot. By noon, Rick Santoro was suspended pending investigation. By evening, he was the lead story on every local news broadcast. But Ethan wasn't finished. Saturday morning, he delivered a package to Agent Morell containing financial records showing payments from Vic Barron's accounts to Rick's personal bank. Not just the recent months, but going back 3 years. Nearly $200,000 in consulting fees for security services. The federal RICO investigation officially opened Monday morning, but Rick and Vic weren't going down without a fight. This ends tonight. Victor Barron's voice was calm, almost conversational, as he sat across from Ethan in a booth at an all-night diner on the outskirts of Detroit. It was 2 a.m. on Wednesday, and the place was nearly empty except for a tired waitress and a trucker reading a newspaper at the counter. Ethan had come alone, as requested. No weapons, no backup, no recording devices. Just a man meeting with the criminal who'd ordered his death. Does it? You've cost me $500,000 in the last 2 weeks. Insurance investigations, police raids, federal attention. My lawyers tell me it could take years to clean up the mess you've made. Sounds expensive. It is, and you're going to pay for it. Vic signaled the waitress, who brought 2 cups of coffee and then retreated to the far end of the restaurant. She'd been paid well to mind her own business. Here's what's going to happen, Vic continued. You're going to call your FBI friend and tell her you lied about everything. Made it up out of spite because you found out about your wife's affair. Then you're going to leave Detroit and never come back. And if I don't, then Rick and I are going to have another conversation with you. Except this time, we won't leave you breathing. Ethan sipped his coffee. You know what's interesting about this place? What? No security cameras. No witnesses who could identify faces in a lineup. Cash-only business, so no credit card records. If someone wanted to have a private conversation about illegal activities, this would be the perfect spot. Vic's eyes narrowed. Your point? My point is, you just threatened to murder me in the ideal location for that conversation to be overheard by law enforcement. What the hell are you talking about? Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out a small electronic device. Voice-activated digital recorder. Battery life of 8 hours. Memory capacity for 12 hours of conversation. Admissible in federal court under the Patriot Act provisions for organized crime investigations. Vic's hand moved toward his jacket, but Ethan held up a warning finger. I wouldn't. Agent Morell has 3 teams positioned outside. They've been listening to our conversation through a transmitter in my jacket button. If I don't walk out of here in 5 minutes, they'll assume I need immediate assistance. You son of a witch. Victor Barron, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, and threatening a federal witness. Agent Morell's voice came from behind Vic as she and 2 other agents entered the diner, weapons drawn. The trucker at the counter turned out to be Agent Williams from the Detroit field office. The tired waitress was Agent Foster, who'd been recording everything from behind the counter. Vic didn't resist as they cuffed him. He just stared at Ethan with pure hatred. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. As they led Vic away, Agent Morell sat down across from Ethan. Nice work. That recording will seal the RICO case. What about Rick? We picked him up an hour ago. Turns out when his criminal partners started getting arrested, he decided to liquidate some assets and head for the Canadian border. Customs stopped his car with $50,000 in cash and a fake passport. Flight risk? Flight risk. He'll be denied bail pending trial. Ethan finished his coffee. How long will they get? With the evidence we have, Vic's looking at 25 to life under RICO. Rick will probably plead down to 15 years if he cooperates. And Marissa? Your wife's clean. She took money from Vic's organization, but as far as we can tell, she genuinely didn't know it was criminal proceeds. She thought she was working for a legitimate hospitality company. She'll testify. She's already given us everything she knows. Bank records, meeting schedules, names of other employees. She's pretty shaken up about the whole thing. Agent Morell stood to leave, then paused. Mr. Cole, off the record. What you did was dangerous and probably illegal in about 6 different ways. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. This time, don't ever try anything like this again. Wasn't planning on it. After she left, Ethan sat alone in the empty diner, processing the events of the last 3 weeks. Rick Santoro and Victor Barron were in federal custody. Their organization was dismantled. The businesses they terrorized were free to operate without paying protection money. And Marissa was waiting for him at home, ready to rebuild their marriage if he could forgive her. Could he? The trial took 6 months to prepare and 3 weeks to complete. Federal prosecutors had built an airtight case using the evidence Ethan had provided, combined with testimony from nearly 24 witnesses who'd been afraid to speak out while Rick and Vic were still free. Ethan testified on the fourth day, describing the attack and the subsequent investigation. His dashcam footage was played for the jury. The recording of Rick's confession was admitted as evidence. Financial records showing 3 years of payoffs were presented in meticulous detail. Rick's defense attorney tried to portray him as a victim of circumstances, a good cop who'd made bad decisions under pressure from organized crime figures. The jury didn't buy it. Vic's lawyer attempted an insanity defense, claiming his client was mentally unstable and not responsible for his actions. That didn't work either. Both men were convicted on all counts. Rick Santoro, 18 years in federal prison. Victor Barron, life without parole under the habitual offender statute. Their associates received sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years. The entire criminal organization was dismantled, its assets seized under federal forfeiture laws. Marissa filed for divorce 2 weeks after the trial ended. She kept her maiden name, moved to Chicago, and started working for a legitimate marketing firm. They spoke occasionally, usually about practical matters like selling the house or dividing retirement accounts. She never apologized, but she never blamed him either. They'd both made choices that led to the destruction of their marriage. The difference was, his choices had been about justice. Hers had been about money. 1 year after the attack, Ethan reopened Cole Automotive in a larger facility on the east side of Detroit. Business was booming. Word had spread that he was the guy who'd taken down a corrupt cop and his mob connections. People trusted him with their cars and their problems. Javier had become a full partner in the business, bringing his photography skills and criminal justice background to help with insurance investigations and fraud detection. They'd developed a specialty in helping other small business owners who were being victimized by protection rackets or corrupt officials. Agent Morell stopped by occasionally, usually when she needed expert testimony about automotive fraud or wanted advice on investigating organized crime's involvement in legitimate businesses. She'd been promoted to supervising agent and now ran the Detroit field office's organized crime task force. "You ever think about joining the bureau?" she asked one afternoon as Ethan finished working on her personal car, a classic Mustang that needed constant attention. "Not really. I like fixing things that stay fixed." "Fair enough. But if you ever change your mind, we could use someone with your particular talents." "What talents are those?" "The ability to make criminals think they're smarter than you, right up until the moment they realize they're not." The confrontation came on a Tuesday evening in late October, exactly 1 year and 1 week after the attack. Ethan was closing up the shop when he noticed the black sedan parked across the street. It had been there for an hour, long enough to be surveillance rather than coincidence. He recognized the driver, Tommy Kessler, the courier whose money truck Ethan had set up for robbery. Tommy had been released from federal prison 6 months ago after cooperating with prosecutors. Apparently, he decided cooperation wasn't enough. Ethan finished locking up and walked toward his truck, making no attempt to hide his awareness of being watched. As he reached for his keys, Tommy got out of the sedan and approached him. "Ethan Cole? That's me?" Tommy was smaller than Ethan remembered, probably because he wasn't carrying $12,000 in criminal proceeds and a switchblade anymore. Prison had made him lean and hard, but also cautious. This wasn't the same punk kid who'd driven collection routes for Vic Barron. "I think we need to talk." "About what?" "About what you did to my friends? What you did to my life?" "Your friends tried to kill me. Your life was already headed nowhere good." Tommy stepped closer, his hand inside his jacket. "You destroyed everything. Vic's in prison forever. Rick's never getting out. Dozens of good people lost their jobs because of you. Good people don't work for criminals. You don't know anything about those people, about why they needed those jobs, what they were trying to provide for their families. I know they were helping extort money from legitimate businesses. I know they were part of a conspiracy that included attempted murder. You could have minded your own business, could have taken your beating and moved on, but you had to be a hero." Ethan noticed movement in his peripheral vision, Javier's car pulling into the lot behind Tommy. His partner had noticed the surveillance and doubled back to provide backup. "Tommy, whatever you're thinking about doing, it's a bad idea. This isn't going to bring back your friends or fix your problems. Maybe not, but it'll make me feel better." Tommy pulled a snub-nosed revolver from his jacket, but his hand was shaking with anger and adrenaline. Bad combination for accurate shooting, but potentially deadly for everyone in the vicinity. "Put the gun down." "No, you took everything from me. Now I'm going to take everything from you." The gunshot was surprisingly loud in the enclosed space of the parking lot. Tommy staggered backward, looking confused, then collapsed onto the asphalt. Javier stood behind him, holding a tire iron and breathing hard. He was going to shoot you. I know. Good timing. They called 911 and waited for the police and paramedics. Tommy was alive but unconscious, the gun lying several feet away where it had fallen when Javier's tire iron connected with his skull. Detective Sarah Martinez arrived with the first patrol units. She was one of the honest cops who'd helped clean up the department after Rick Santoro's arrest. Self-defense? He drew a weapon and threatened to kill me. My partner stopped him. Any idea why he wanted to hurt you? He worked for Victor Barron. I'm the guy who helped put Barron away. Detective Martinez nodded. We'll need statements from both of you, but this looks pretty straightforward. Mr. Kessler violated his parole by carrying a firearm and threatening a witness in a federal case. He'll be going back to prison for a long time. As the ambulance took Tommy away, Ethan realized something had changed. For the first time since the night of the attack, he felt completely safe. The last loose end from Rick and Vic's organization had been tied up. It was over. 6 months later, Ethan stood in the parking lot of the federal courthouse, watching a prison transport van disappear into traffic. Rick Santoro, Victor Barron, and 8 of their associates had just been loaded into that van for transportation to various federal correctional facilities around the country. Their appeals had been denied. Their sentences were final. Agent Morrell joined him on the courthouse steps, squinting in the afternoon sunlight. How does it feel? Like justice. Complete justice? Ethan considered the question. Rick would spend the next 18 years behind bars, getting out when he was 62 years old, with no pension, no reputation, and no prospects. Vic would die in prison. Their criminal organization had been completely dismantled, its victims compensated with seized assets. Marissa had moved on with her life, learned from her mistakes, and was apparently doing well in Chicago. She'd sent him a card last Christmas. Nothing romantic, just acknowledgement that they'd both survived a difficult period and come out better people. Yeah, complete justice. Good, because I have a proposition for you. I told you I'm not interested in joining the FBI. This isn't about joining. It's about consulting. We're putting together a task force to investigate organized crime's infiltration of legitimate businesses, auto shops, towing companies, construction firms, restaurants. We need someone who understands how these businesses actually operate. Consulting on what? How criminals hide illegal activities inside legal businesses. How to spot the signs of extortion or protection rackets. How to build cases that stick in federal court. Ethan thought about it. Cole Automotive was successful beyond his wildest expectations, but he'd always been motivated by more than money. The idea of helping other small business owners fight back against criminal organizations appealed to him. Part-time? Very part-time. Maybe one case every few months, good pay, flexible schedule, and you'd be helping people who can't help themselves. All right, I'm interested. They shook hands on the courthouse steps, sealing a partnership that would last for years. Ethan would continue running his auto shop, but he'd also become the FBI's go-to expert on how organized crime infiltrated legitimate businesses. It was satisfying work, the kind that made a difference. As Agent Morrell walked away, Ethan pulled out his phone and called Javier. How's business? Busy, Mrs. Patterson wants her transmission rebuilt. The Johnson account needs 3 fleet vehicles serviced, and some guy from the mayor's office called about maintaining their motor pool. Sounds like we're going to need more space. Already looking at properties. Found a place on Woodward with 6 bays and room for expansion. Good, because I just agreed to do some consulting work for the feds. We're going to be busier than ever. Ethan climbed into his truck and drove through downtown Detroit, past the police station where Rick Santoro used to work, past the empty lot where the Velvet Room had once operated before federal seizure, past the auto parts stores and repair shops that were thriving now that they didn't have to pay protection money. The city was healing. Businesses were growing. Honest people were prospering. Sometimes justice took longer than you wanted, but it was worth the wait. 3 years after the attack, Ethan married Detective Sarah Martinez in a small ceremony at St. Andrew's Church. She'd been instrumental in cleaning up the Detroit Police Department after Rick's arrest, and their professional relationship had gradually become personal. Javier was his best man. Agent Morrell attended as a friend rather than a federal law enforcement officer. Even Marissa sent a congratulations card from Chicago, where she was engaged to an accountant who had no connections to organized crime. The reception was held at Cole Automotive's new facility, 6 service bays, a customer lounge, and offices for both the repair business and Ethan's consulting work with federal law enforcement. During his speech, Ethan thanked everyone who'd helped him through the most difficult period of his life. But he spent most of his time talking about the future. Sarah and I met during the worst case of police corruption this city had seen in decades. We worked together to make sure the people responsible faced justice. Now we're going to work together to make sure it never happens again. The crowd applauded, but Ethan wasn't finished. A lot of people ask me if I regret what happened, if I wish I'd just taken that beating and moved on with my life. The answer is no, not for a second. Because sometimes the right thing to do is the hard thing to do. Sometimes you have to risk everything to protect the people who can't protect themselves. He raised his glass to the assembled guests, FBI agents, honest cops, small business owners, auto mechanics, and friends who'd stood by him when things got dangerous. To justice, to second chances, and to the people brave enough to fight for both. As the evening wound down, Ethan and Sarah stood outside the shop, watching their guests drive away into the Detroit night. "Any regrets?" she asked. "About what?" "Taking on Rick and Vic, nearly getting yourself killed, destroying your marriage." Ethan thought about it. The attack had been brutal, but it had revealed the truth about his wife's betrayal and Rick's corruption. The investigation had been dangerous, but it had dismantled a criminal organization that had been terrorizing local businesses for years. The divorce had been painful, but it had freed both him and Marissa to find partners who actually shared their values. No regrets. Even about Marissa? Especially about Marissa. She wanted a different life than I could give her. Rick promised her money and excitement and status. She made her choice. And you made yours. I made mine. Sarah kissed him, then headed for her car. She had an early shift tomorrow, working on a case involving city contractors who might be paying kickbacks to municipal officials. Honest work, investigating real crimes, protecting ordinary people from criminals who thought badges and connections made them untouchable. After she left, Ethan walked through his shop one final time, checking locks and setting alarms. 6 service bays, all equipped with the latest diagnostic equipment, a customer lounge with leather chairs and fresh coffee, offices where he met with FBI agents and federal prosecutors to discuss ongoing investigations into organized crime. It was more than he'd ever imagined when he first opened Cole Automotive 15 years ago, but more importantly, it was clean, honest, built on legitimate work and genuine service, not corruption and violence. On his desk was a framed newspaper clipping from the Detroit Free Press, dated 6 months after Rick and Vic's conviction. Local business owners report sharp decline in extortion, protection rackets following federal crackdown. Below that was a letter from the Small Business Administration, thanking him for his exceptional service in supporting federal law enforcement efforts to combat organized crime's infiltration of legitimate businesses. But the item that meant the most to him was simpler. A handwritten note from Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman who owned a dry cleaning shop near his old location. "Mr. Cole, thank you for what you did. My shop is finally profitable again now that I don't have to pay insurance to those people. You gave me my life back. Helen Patterson." Ethan turned off the lights and locked the door, then stood in the parking lot where Tommy Kessler had drawn a gun on him 2 years ago. The asphalt had been repaved since then, erasing any physical evidence of that final confrontation. But the memory remained. Not as a source of trauma or fear, but as a reminder of how far he'd come. From victim to survivor to someone who could protect others from the predators who used violence and corruption to steal from honest people. His phone buzzed with a text from Agent Morrell. "New case. Construction company in Flint might be paying protection money to local gang. Free for lunch tomorrow to discuss?" Ethan typed back. "Always." He climbed into his truck and drove home through the quiet streets of Detroit, past businesses that were staying open later because their owners no longer feared being robbed or extorted, past neighborhoods where families could walk safely because corrupt cops were no longer providing protection for criminals. The city was healing. Justice had been served. And tomorrow, there would be more work to do. As he pulled into his driveway, Ethan reflected on the events that had brought him to this moment. The attack that had nearly killed him. The investigation that had nearly destroyed him. The confrontation that had finally freed him. Sometimes you don't win by running faster, he thought. Sometimes you win by making them trip. But sometimes, if you're smart and patient and willing to take risks for the right reasons, you win by making sure they never get back up again. Ethan Cole smiled and walked into his house, where his wife was waiting with dinner and conversation about their plans for the weekend. Normal life with normal problems and normal solutions. It was exactly what he'd wanted all along.